Well, my name is Tyler Towles. I'm the Extension Research Entomologist here at the Macon Ridge Research Station located in Winsboro, Louisiana. And today I'm going to talk a little bit with you guys about early season insect management in Louisiana field corn. One of the most important things we can do early season for corn is include an insecticide seed treatment when you're prior to planting. This is a preventative option, just because you add that preventative option and you don't have soil insects doesn't mean that it's not worth it, because if you do have a year of high insect pressure, there is no rescue option if you see significant stand loss or poor vigor in your seedlings. And there's another number of reasons that including this insecticide seed treatment is beneficial. We have lots of soil insects such as wireworms that feed on roots and seeds, seed corn maggots that can feed on your seeds prior to emergence, white grubs that feed on roots. They love grasses such as corn and southern corn rootworm. After plant emergence, chinch bugs can be an issue. However, if you go out with an insecticide seed treatment, you get a few weeks of activity on these, and they're typically not an issue. Planting a BT corn hybrid can prevent cutworm infestation. Cutworms love fields that are littered with previous year plant material, and they do hide below the soil surface. So if you are planning on making an insecticide application, just know that they do stay below the ground when it's hot. So making that application towards the afternoon would be better for control of them. Sugarcane beetles also feed right at soil surface, and they can totally knock over corn plants by their feeding. But however, if you do include insecticide seed treatment, this is typically a big deal, as it controls them pretty well. So to test a lot of the insecticide seed treatments that are on the market right now, we run trials like this every year where we test 3 rates of Poncho, 3 rates of Cruiser, Avicta, Lamivia, Poncho plus Votivo, and then Cruiser plus Lamivia. And this is the past 5 years or 6 years worth of data where we measure seedling stand and yield. And what we see is across the past 6 years, we haven't seen a significant increase in plant stand when we add that insecticide seed treatment. However, if you will look, there is a small numerical difference in some of our better performing insecticide seed treatments when it comes to stand. However, we didn't see any significant increase in yield. But again, if you look at that numerical difference, if you were to add that Poncho Votivo, you would have made a few more bushels per acre, and that would have paid for that insecticide seed treatment. So depending on what you go out with, just because you're going out with insecticide seed treatment and you don't see high insect pressure, it doesn't mean that you're not getting a return on investment. So keep that in mind. There are some years where insect pressure in the soil is worse than others. Dr. Don Cook out of Mississippi State sent me this. This is a picture of southern corn rootworm damage, and you can see the 4 rows in front of the camera, and then you can look off to either to the left or right and see the increase in plant stand. This is another picture. Looking at the left side was included with a seed treatment, and looking at the right was not. So again, this is that same trial. Everything is the same. And again, we measured seedling stand and yield. And what we saw from this data was that we dropped plant stand by about by 2/3. So we're looking at non-treated plots. We're at 10,000 plants per acre in comparison to all the other insecticide seed treatment plots up near 27 to 30,000 seed per acre. And the major focal point of this is when it came time to harvest, plots without an insecticide seed treatment yielded about 26.9 bushels per acre in comparison to all the other plots yielding up near the 170s and 200s bushels per acre. So if you average this out, just including a seed treatment alone in this year, it would have saved you 166 bushels per acre on average, and that would have paid for including a seed treatment for many years to come. So another thing that I wanted to talk about was looking at insecticide seed treatments following cover crops. And again, this is the past from 2018 to 2020. Again, we don't see a significant yield increase, but again, if you look across any time that we did include an insecticide seed treatment behind a cover crop, we saw a numerical increase as of in comparison to when we didn't. So again, effects on yield. Anytime we added insecticide seed treatment behind a cover crop, we saw a increase in bushels per acre in comparison to when we didn't. So, like I said, you're not always going to see a significant yield increase. However, just because you don't see that significant yield increase doesn't mean you're not getting a return on that investment. So a lot of people ask about the green bridge, and what that is if you plant into a cover crop that is still green, and once that cover crop does eventually die, any pests that are feeding in that cover crop are going to move right to whatever you just planted into it, whether it be corn or soybean or cotton. So what we recommend is burning down your cover crops anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks prior to hitting that field with your planter. That gives time for the cover crop to completely die. It gives time for the insects that may be in the soil to move out or die. And we don't have any data right now on the green bridge. So coming next year, we're going to run the corn insecticide seed treatment trial that I just presented side by side in cover crops that has not been terminated, and then cover crops that was terminated 6 weeks out. So maybe next year, this time, I'll have a year's worth of data on the green bridge to present to you guys. So moving on to seedling stage corn and up, we do run into a couple of occasional pests throughout the year. Stink bugs can be kind of serious in young corn. They do tend to feed near the field edges, and kind of a telltale sign of stink bug feeding in corn is this whole elongation you'll see in the leaves, and that's just where their mouth part has pierced the leaf, and as the whorl unfurls, they kind of elongate. They can hit the growing point. If it's severe enough, they can hit that growing point, and you'll see dead heart and essentially stand loss. But like I said, they're field edge feeders. They don't typically span the entire field, and a pyrethroid can knock them out pretty easily. Moving into mid-season pests, we see fall armyworms a lot and corn borers occasionally. What I recommend here is just planting a good corn hybrid that has 2-gene BT hybrid in it. Fall armyworms and corn borers are both susceptible to the BT hybrids that we have on the market right now, so they're not going to be too much of an issue if you go out with a 2-gene BT hybrid. So another pest that we see every year in field corn is the ballworm. And what is important to know about the ballworm is that we do not see significant yield loss from ballworms in ear stage corn. There's a paper out of Mississippi State that stated that it takes 50 to 60 damaged kernels to see to even near the yield loss levels. So we don't recognize them as a significant pest in field corn, and we definitely don't recommend going out with any kind of insecticide applications to try to control these guys, because that would would be a waste of money. So to prove this, this spans 50 locations from 2014 to 2019, where we planted a 0-gene, a 2-gene, and 3-gene corn hybrids. And we wanted to look and see how this affected yield in comparison to the bollworm feeding in ears. And what we see is that there's no significant difference when you're planting a 2 and a 3-gene corn hybrid when it comes to the cotton bollworm. So keep in mind, going out and planting that 3-gene corn hybrid is more expensive, and it's also important in the role of resistance development, because if you're in a cotton field in the summer and you see a bollworm moth flying, there's a 95% chance that stems from corn that's also in the landscape. So when we're planting the VIP3A gene in corn hybrids, we're exposing these bollworm populations to this gene that we're not seeing any kind of benefit having it in corn. So what we recommend is don't plant VIP3A expressing corn hybrids, because you're not seeing a yield benefit, and you're not getting your money back from doing that when it comes to cotton bollworms. However, where it is important is it's also in cotton varieties across the landscape, and that's where we see the most economic benefit from having the VIP3A protein is in cotton. So it's best that we don't subject these insects to the VIP3A protein in corn before they get to cotton, because we're just allowing this insect to develop resistance to our VIP3A protein faster, and we're seeing that effect in cotton right now. If you look at the picture, this is how this stuff starts. If you see the worm is barely starting to make its way in. So I don't know how much time we have left on the VIP3A protein when it comes to bollworms, and we don't really have anything in the pipeline right now to back it up. So, and to add on to that, I don't know how long the diamides are going to last. So it's getting increasingly harder to control bollworms in cotton, and it's getting more and more expensive. So we got some estimates for some bags of seed prices in 2019, and it costs about $4.26 more per acre to plant a corn hybrid with the VIP3A protein, even though you're not seeing any benefit to that. So just keep that in mind when you're planting corn. If the seed seller tells you you need that, you don't need that, and it's going to save you about $5 an acre if you just go with the 2-gene corn hybrid. So the take-home messages: always use a seed-applied insecticide when you're planting corn. Like I said, if something were to happen and you start seeing stand loss or vigor issues, there's nothing you can do. There's no rescue treatment. You just need to go out with that seed-applied insecticide from the get-go. Don't try to cut that corner and save that money, because it's just not worth the risk. You don't always see that yield increase. However, that doesn't mean that there's not a return on that investment. And 9 times out of 10, you're not gonna visually see that return on investment, but that 10th year might be the year that you see it. And lastly, 2-gene B-team corn hybrids are still fantastic for borer control, fall armyworm control. Don't plant any corn hybrids that contain the VIP3A protein. You're not seeing that return on investment, and it's opening us up to VIP3A resistance in other crops such as cotton, where it really matters. So that's everything. You guys can reach me at this information. My cell phone and my email are there. So thanks for listening.